Hello and welcome to Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio. This is Stefan, your host, British by birth, American by choice. The Founding Fathers crafted some remarkable documents that led to the creation of a great country founded on liberty and self-reliance. I have lived in the Euro-socialist nightmare, and I'm doing what I can to return this country to the vision that the Founding Fathers gave us. We need to strive to rebuild that shining city on the hill, for without us, the world has nowhere to turn for freedom. For the next hour, I will be presenting news, views, and guests that help keep the true spirit of America alive. And good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're listening to the show. This is Stefan, your Patrick Come Lately. As the lady said, British by birth, American by choice, just like the Founding Fathers. Well, folks, episode 252 tonight, and welcome to the show. Tonight, I want to talk about some, but only some, of the topics that could be covered this week. I'm going to be talking about one that's close to my heart, the disgraceful dismantling of the U.S. immigration system by Khalif Hussein's administration. I've promised you more information about the mess that Hildebeest made of the Libyan situation. But most of that's bad news. And I remember about a year ago saying, I do want to try and be positive. So I do have one positive thing, but I have to apologize. Most of the show is going to be about regressive excesses yet again. So, with and I salute him for that. But the amount collected for him is over $200,000. Nice to know that there are so many good people out there. And I believe that a lot of that $200,000 is just $5, $10, $15 that people have promised at the crowdfunding site. But there are also, in that $200,000, includes offers of cars from car dealers, etc. So he's kind of set up for the rest of his life. And the other good news is that not only are there good people out there, but the person who actually set up this collection is now stepping in to help this lucky man look after his newfound wealth so that he can continue to afford whichever car he chooses, pay for the insurance, pay for the gas, pay for the maintenance. So it's nice to know that good things do happen, and let's applaud them. However, I'm going to go into my weekly commentary, and I'm afraid that's a little less positive. Yes, the weekly commentary. This week, I'm going to start with something, and again, you may have seen some of this on your TV, but another atrocity by ISIS. First of all, the Japanese, but now we heard about the Jordanian pilot, who was supposed to be subject of negotiations to free him and the Japanese victims, although at least one of them now has been, no, I think both of them have actually been beheaded. Well, unfortunately, the Jordanian pilot will also not be set free. A video was released today where he is burned to death in a cage. It is apparently a horrific video. Sometimes I will endure certain things for my audience to be able to report the truth to them. I will believe what others who have watched the video have said. It is a sick, sick thing. It's essentially being used as a recruiting tool by ISIS. It is just absolutely unbelievable. Now, Jordan had been in these negotiations had made it very clear that they were insisting on proof of life before releasing the requested ISIS prisoner, a female suicide bomber that went wrong, so she wasn't able to commit suicide. They had apparently had intelligence that something had already happened to him, and therefore they were insisting on proof of life before they did anything. Well, it's a good thing they did, because it is really sick that these negotiations were totally bogus. Quite callously, these ISIS thugs pretended that they could live up to their side of the bargain. Well, Jordan drew a line in the sand, and they don't let people cross it. They drew a line in the sand and said that if you execute our pilot, we will execute the ISIS prisoner and some other ISIS prisoners that we hold in retribution. And just before coming on to the show, the latest word was that the woman in question, the suicide bomber, and at least one other ISIS prisoner had already been executed. The Jordanians showing a bit of backbone. Meanwhile, in the United Socialist States of America, we release high-value Islamic extremists. You tell me, what's the best approach? Can we actually negotiate with such bottom feeders? And don't forget, Hitler. This woman cannot be allowed to become our commander-in-chief, but more on her later. Now, of course, there is one issue about the fact that Jordan has the backbone and has actually executed these people, that there is a likelihood that ISIS will retaliate of itself with other hostages that they hold. It's a difficult thing. Does that mean we have to kowtow to them just because of the hostages? That means they get exactly what they want. No. Unfortunately, in war, there is collateral damage. King Barry doesn't seem to mind that, because he sends the drones off and kills terrorists when they're having picnics with children and grandmas and wives, etc. So he doesn't seem to mind about collateral damage. And this is true. In a war, there is collateral damage. And it's a very sad thing for the people that have been taken hostage. But if we give in to these bottom feeders, it just encourages them to try and capture more hostages. So I think we have to stand firm and resolute, and I think what Jordan has done is exactly right. Just every time you execute one of ours, we execute 5 of yours. None of this trading nonsense. You give the guy back, or we execute another 5. Very simple. And especially when it's a traitor, okay, that's a whole different in the weekly commentary. And this one is about the fact that there is more proof that the Obama regime ignores the rule of law. And you'll know that I'm always very much like to talk about the whole immigration issue. And here's showing that the Obama regime has flaunted the law to the highest degree. And why Congress is allowing him to get away with it is absolutely unbelievable. I can't understand why they're doing that. It turns out that in the last 5 years, from 2009 to 2014, based on a Freedom of Information Act request, a FOIA request, almost 1 million illegal immigrants, border crossing illegal immigrants. Remember, if you cross the border without papers, you are illegal. And I will use that word again and again. There's 5.5 million, so there's 1 million illegals, but also another 4.5 million immigrants who aren't entitled to green cards, got them during Obama's presidency. Now, a lot of money was paid when I got my green card, and a lot of time and a lot of effort was expended. I'd love to tell the story, but I'd need a 2 or 3 hour show to tell you all about it. But it was very interesting, and it was very expensive, and I was glad I was being sponsored by a very rich company. But now to hear that 4.5 million immigrants who weren't entitled to green cards got them anyway is absolutely disgusting. It's sickening. The Center for Immigration Studies was researching this, and they are saying that this number that got these, let's say, green cards under false pretenses, they are more than the number of actual true green cards and temporary work Immigration Studies calls it a huge parallel immigration work authorization system outside the limits set by Congress. And of course, this impacts job opportunities for US workers. It damages the integrity of the immigration system. Of course it does. And it, of course, actually encourages illegal immigration. Absolutely disgusting. So it includes 1.8 million work permits given to immigrants with temporary visas or visa waivers. They shouldn't be allowed to have them. They're not here. They're just visitors. They're tourists. Those are tourist visas. So it's just absolutely unbelievable. But I'm going to chat a bit more about this because, as you know, I'm very much into checking up on all this illegal immigration nonsense. However, I'll have to do so after this break coming up. And, stick with me while I try to earn a little bit of money.
You can lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more with Maximum Slim's first ever rapid weight loss guarantee. Today, you get Maximum Slim and Advanced Fat and Carb Blocker absolutely risk-free. The all-natural ingredients in Maximum Slim are a powerful weight loss combination. The Maximum Slim formula turns your body into a fat-burning furnace that supercharges your weight loss. Advanced Fat and Carb Blocker stops the breakdown of sugar so your body doesn't store it as fat. Today, you'll get both of these products absolutely risk-free with no obligation. Only pay shipping. There are no expensive meal plans or exhausting DVDs. Just take Maximum Slim twice a day. It's fast, simple, and now it's guaranteed. Look, you can start losing weight today or not. Go back to your high school days and wear your favorite jeans again. Guaranteed. Call now and get both weight loss formulas free. Call 800-451-0228. 800-451-0228. That's 800-451-0228.
Doc, you gotta give it to me straight.
All right.
'Cause I'm dying here. I mean, take a look at this letter from the IRS.
Oh, my.
This is killing me, Doc. I tell you, it's killing me.
Cheer up, my friend.
Huh?
The tax doctor is here. My diagnosis tells me that you're going to be just fine.
Really?
The tax doctor will not rest until we find you the best possible tax settlement.
Really, Doc?
Guaranteed.
If the IRS claims you owe them $10,000 or more in business or personal back taxes, call a tax doctor right now. We could save you up to 75% if you qualify. Guaranteed or you pay nothing. Call right now for free details.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. And thanks for sticking with me through that break, folks. Just like to remind you, if you hear in those commercials anything of interest, please do use the 800 numbers in the commercial every time you call that company. They send me a little bit of money in thanks. So these commercials don't get paid up front. They only get paid when people react. So I don't want you to call them just for the fun of it. That wouldn't be honest. But if you are thinking about those services, do give them a thought. Well, before the break, I was talking about more proof that the Obama regime ignores the rule of law and how basically they've been handing out work permits as if they were candies. 5.5 million people. Here's something that will really make your blood boil. That in that 5.5 million, admittedly a very small percentage, 1,200 new work permits, small percentage, but still the principle is there, were issued to aliens who had been denied asylum, were suspected of using fraudulent documents, had been stowaways, or had been refused at the port of entry. That very often happens. Someone comes there, they go to the immigration guy, he looks at everything, says, I don't trust this, you're not allowed to come in. How can someone like that end up with a work permit? Folks, it just boggles your mind. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable. Well, I don't like it, and luckily there's at least one senator in D.C. who agrees with me and who's very strong on these immigration issues, Senator Jeff Sessions. And he called Monday for a full investigation. He says this massive increase in the labor supply has occurred simultaneously with a steep drop in family incomes and a sharp rise in the number of Americans pushed out of the workforce. We always hear, that blarney from the left that these people are doing jobs that Americans don't want. But no. And we always say, oh, well, this is all Hispanic, etc. No, now a lot of these people coming in, they're from Africa and from the Middle East, Somalia, Yemen. Do we really want those kinds of people coming in? Folks, we've got to wake up. This is just absolutely, this is what we should be doing. Yeah. Hear that? Wake up, America. Sessions said all the job gains since the recession have gone to foreign workers, while the slack labor market has depressed median family incomes almost $5,000 in that time. That's quite true. This is one of the things that I don't know whether they realize it. And people always say, well, you know, the Republicans always want this immigration flow because it's cheap labor for their paymasters, the companies. But somebody's got to realize that with cheap labor, that means you've got cheap salaries. They don't have a lot of spending power. That means those people can't buy a lot. So that depresses the economy as well. So, you know, this thing of cheap labor, I don't think that story flies. Now, if this amnesty that King Barry announced in November, if it survives court review, and of course the weak opposition from the spineless GOP leaders, he'll have added more foreign workers to the economy than jobs since 2009. But that November amnesty is claiming that it's going to add another 5 million people that are going to get work permits. So we've already had 5 million people who technically shouldn't have work permits had it. Now another 5 million. The left is sort of shouting how Obama has added 10 million jobs to the economy since 2009. Very strange math how they get there, because there's less people working, but whatever. Okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say that he has added 10 million jobs to the economy since 2009, but he's also let in at least 10 million people with, or will have done with, legal work permits. And what about all the illegals anyway? So most of those 10 million jobs are not going to Americans. They're going to all these people that came in. Right? This whole influx, I mean, there's a normal inflow of about 1 million foreign workers every year. True legal immigrants, right? That's fine. America grew and became strong on the backs of immigrants. 1 million's fine. So we can accept that. We can absorb them. And we have about 2 million guest workers, people who are here on some form of temporary work permit. But if you add that all in, then you have, since 2009, about 18 million foreign student and workers come in. Do the math, folks. Obama claims to have created 10 million, but he's allowed 18 million people in. No wonder that we don't have jobs for Americans. Now, if you look at it, you also have roughly 24 million young Americans who have turned 18 and joined the workforce since 2009. Again, so now you've got 18 plus 24, that's 42 million people came in. How many left? Not that many. So we're short on jobs, right? Now, all these new numbers they're talking about, we've got to remember as well, these are just first-time awards, not work permit extensions. And most of these work permits, because these are basically your visas, are temporary. But they can be extended until a court decides to repatriate a worker. The court backlog is now so great that it takes 5 years or more for a court to decide whether an illegal should be repatriated. I mean, this is basically, it's indefinite. This is just absolutely disgusting. And as the Center for Immigration Studies says, this is why there is such a huge incentive to game the system, because illegals know they can get a work permit and it takes a long time to resolve the case. I mean, this is just absolutely disgusting and unbelievable. But anyway, let's go on and have one more commentary, and then we will get to our dear friend Hillary and her mess in Libya. So, some discussion why Loretta Lynch should not be confirmed. Because Loretta Lynch, first of all, supports King Barry's opening of the floodgates. To go back to Senator Jeff Sessions, he was questioning the nominee to be the next Attorney General about King Barry's deportation amnesty. The Republican argued that the executive action gives people who are unlawfully here the right to work and participate in things like Social Security and Medicare, even though Congress has not approved that. Loretta Lynch responded by saying the right and obligation to work is shared by everyone in this country, regardless of how they came here. She wants to be kind of the top person administering the law in this country, and she has the gall to say that people who broke the law should be treated equally with American citizens or people who are here legally. That woman needs to be run out of Washington on a rail. She actually told the Senate Judiciary Committee, who were interviewing her, the underlying legal justification for the president's granting deferred action for 5 million individuals was based on an identifiable legal framework that she found compelling. Well, of course, anybody that's going to be nominated by Khalif Hussein, we know which way they're going to be thinking. But it's just unbelievable that our legislators in Washington are allowing her to get away with that. We have a few good ones like Jeff Sessions and, of course, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz wanted to know her opinion on whether it's constitutional for the U.S. government to use a drone strike to kill an American on U.S. soil if the individual does not pose an imminent threat, which Holder claimed was legal. Lynch, however, was the consummate politician. She hesitated to answer. She suggested it would be governed by the nature of the interaction. In other words, she didn't say, no, it's unconstitutional, which it is. No, she said it depended on the circumstances. So if the president decides that I'm a danger, he can call a drone on me and send it down, and because he decided, it's up to him. Folks, go and read Rex Reepe's books, FEMA Camp series, and you'll see where we're going with all of this. I used to think it was fiction, but it's every day it gets closer to fact, which is frightening. Cruz noted that Holder repeatedly refused to answer the question, and he pressed Lynch for a yes or no answer. She wouldn't give it, so he finally said the obvious answer is no. He said, I don't view that as a difficult legal question, and it demonstrates what I think is this administration's approach to constitutional law, that it always opts in favor of government power. In other words, ignore the Constitution. What the government wants to do is right. And I agree with him 100% there. So it is disappointing in this hearing that, try as I might, there is nothing that yielded anything that suggests a limitation on the authority of the President. That does not augur well for you standing up to the President when the law so requires. Lynch responded that it is the role of the Attorney General to give objective legal advice to the President. And ultimately, the Attorney General must represent the American people, she added, as an afterthought, I think. Mark Levin was also very vocal on this. He played the clip of Senator Sessions asking the question, who has more right in this country to a job, a lawful immigrant here, a green card holder, or a citizen, or the person who entered the country unlawfully? And this is when she said, well, it doesn't matter if they're here, they all have a right to participate. Folks, this woman is totally untenable. Mark says that would appear to be the position of the nominee for the AG of the United States at the Justice Department, who would have as her responsibility to enforce federal law. Not the laws Obama decides he wants to enforce or not, but her job would be to do that. And she just said if people come here illegally, they have the same right to work. Unbelievable. Okay. Well, before we go to the commercial break, just a quick note on Rex is there in the chat room, and Rex, I'm going to hold you to that. Not only is it in the chat log, I'm going to put it on the show so it's in the recordings. The dollar is going to implode on July 17th this year. So, folks, buy your gold, and in the next commercial break, the book that you request comes from one of the gold dealers. Think about requesting that book. It could be a useful thing to have. Okay, folks, so let's, like I said, we'll have to go to the next commercial break, pay the rent. I will be back shortly.
Patriot come lately. British by birth. American by choice. Just like the Founding Fathers. The voice of the conservative resistance.
Every day, millions of Americans grow more concerned about the future of our great nation. The truth is, over the last century, a small but powerful collectivist movement known as progressivism has debased our politics, our culture, and our currency. We're just a small step from falling into 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan warned. Friend, this is Pat Boone with an important free offer on a hot new book called The Great Withdrawal by Craig Smith and Lowell Ponte. This new book explains how we, the people, can end this fatal detour into big government and get back on the path of faith and freedom charted by our founders. Call now for a free copy of the hot new book called The Great Withdrawal.
Call now for your free copy. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. 800-978-3901. That's 800-978-3901.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS that you can't pay? Call now for immediate help. At the Tax Relief Line, we help people just like you. If you take on the IRS alone, you could be facing levies, liens, even wage garnishments, personal or business tax issues. If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS, call now and see if you can pay less. They can freeze your bank accounts, even garnish your wages. Call the Tax Relief Line now for immediate help. Our expert team of tax professionals will negotiate your tax problem and deal with the IRS for you. If the IRS is threatening you with levies, wage garnishments, or seizing your assets, call now and see if you can pay the IRS less.
888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043. 888-789-5043.
This is Patriot Come Lately Talk Radio, keeping the spirit of America alive, a proud member of the Red State Talk Radio Network. And I'm back from that break. Thanks for sticking with me. And remember, it's The Great Withdrawal, 800-978-3901. Probably a useful book. It is, you will find it comes from a gold dealer, but if Rex is right, July 17th is the date. Gold and silver and other precious metals might be a useful thing to have around at that time. Anyway, one other thing as I go into the topic of the week, and this is of course Hillary's mess in Libya and just lots of reasons why we can't have her back in the White House and in charge of our country. And one of the reasons is because, as I mentioned earlier in the show, her statement about we have to have empathy with our enemies, and the enemies that behead people and burn them in cages and things like that. Yeah, those are really the sort of people you have to have empathy with. But she is a regressive and she believes in appeasement. Well, let's see what Ronnie had to say on that.
Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically.
Truer words never spoken. Okay, let's get on with topic of the week. And this is, I want to talk about the secret tapes now that have come to light, which undermine everything that Hillary Clinton did, or Hitlery, Hildebeest, as I like to call her, on the Libyan war. And this is, we know that she's been haunted by the attack on the consulate, and this is just really a byproduct of that attack. Especially because she just continues to kind of prevaricate around the events of that night and pretend she has nothing to do with it. But there are other things that went on in that period that contributed to that whole thing, and as these come out, they're actually even worse than what happened in Benghazi. That was bad, but it's even worse. What has come out with these tapes, and these are tapes that actually came from Libya, not from America, is that top Pentagon officials, as well as a senior Democrat in Congress, so distrusted the Secretary of State. Who was the Secretary of State at the time? Not John Kerry, folks. Remember, it was Hillary Rodham Clinton. They so distrusted her march to war in Libya that they opened their own diplomatic channels with the Gaddafi regime in an effort to halt the escalating crisis. The tapes, they've been reviewed by the Washington Times and authenticated by some of the participants, chronicles U.S. officials' unfiltered conversation with Gaddafi's son and a top Libyan leader, and they include criticisms that Mrs. Clinton had developed tunnel vision and led the U.S. into an unnecessary war without adequately weighing the intelligence community's concerns. No, she deliberately did that. You should see these internal State Department reports that are produced in the State Department that go out to the Congress. They are just full of stupid facts. An American intermediary specifically dispatched by the Joint Chiefs of Staff told the Gaddafi regime. That is unbelievable. So the Joint Chiefs of Staff are going around the administration to make their own contacts. That is, talk about breaking protocol. You know, Obama's in a tizzy about Netanyahu being invited by Boehner and saying that's breaking protocol. No wonder he fired so many generals out of the Pentagon, because he found out about this. But this intermediary from the Joint Chiefs of Staff was saying the State Department was controlling what intelligence was being reported to U.S. officials. In other words, the State Department, Hillary Rodham Clinton, right? She was managing it. The buck stops where she is. She was actually having her people lie to Congress. It's as simple as that. President Obama does it. She does it. Man, we should take them up, line them up against the wall and shoot them as the traitors they are. That's exactly what they are. At the time, the Gaddafi regime was fighting a civil war that had grown out of the Arab Spring, backing, hear the word, radical Islamist-backed rebels who wanted to dethrone the longtime dictator. Clinton told everyone, and we can remember this all in the news, that Gaddafi is going to engage in genocide and create a humanitarian crisis, and persuaded King Barry, the NATO allies, and the United Nations to intervene militarily. Now, Gaddafi had ruled Libya with an iron fist. Was he the best of guys? No. Was he the worst? Probably not. Look at ISIS. They're a hell of a lot worse. Gaddafi's son and heir apparent, Saif Gaddafi, told American officials in the tape-recorded conversations that he was worried Mrs. Clinton was using false pretenses to justify unseating his father, and insisted that the regime had no intention of harming a mass of civilians. He compared Mrs. Clinton's campaign for war to that of George W. Bush administration's now debunked weapons of mass destruction accusations. Gaddafi said it was like the WMDs in Iraq. It was based on a false report. In a May 2011 phone call to Dennis Kucinich, a senior Democrat. Now, Dennis Kucinich is very anti-war, so he was really very insistent on trying to stop this war. Gaddafi spoke to Kucinich, and Kucinich has admitted that he did. Libyan airplanes bombing demonstrations, Libyan airplanes bombing districts in Tripoli, Libyan army killed thousands, etc. There's not a single shred of evidence that such things happened in Libya. Gaddafi also warned that many of the US-supported armed rebels were not freedom fighters, but were jihadists who he described as gangsters and terrorists, and we describe, not the administration of course, because Obama could never utter the words and he won't let anyone else utter the words in his administration. Look at the spokesman for the Pentagon. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. They will not utter the words radical Islamist extremists. But that's who they were. And Gaddafi's son said, you have NATO supporting the ships, airplanes, helicopters, arms, training, communication. We asked the American government to send a fact-finding mission and to see everything with their own eyes. Of course, they never did that. So the tapes show that the Pentagon didn't trust the Secretary of State. James Baker said, if the story is true, and it's been fact-checked by the Washington Times, it would be highly unusual for the Pentagon to conduct a separate set of diplomatic negotiations. In our administration, the President made sure that we all sang from the same hymn book. Yeah, but Obama's not a leader, so he wouldn't know how to do that. Kucinich has admitted to these conversations. He said he feared Mrs. Clinton was using emotion to sell a war against Libya that wasn't warranted, and he wanted to get all the information he could to share with his congressional colleagues. I had facts that indicated America was headed once again into an intervention that was going to be disastrous. So no wonder that Obama didn't want to ask for congressional permission to carry out this war. There wasn't any real reason for it. Perhaps the most damning is the revelation that Gaddafi had proposed talks that would lead towards the Libyan dictator peacefully stepping down. Hildebeest, however, turned these negotiations down, preferring to cast her lot in with the insurgents, many of whom were affiliated with Al-Qaeda. So in other words, she belongs in that firing squad as well, because she is also a traitor, giving aid and succor to the enemy. Al-Qaeda is defined as the enemy, and she's giving them aid and succor. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And these tapes also confirm the version that was put forward by the Citizens Commission on Benghazi report, which had put forward the same information. The fact that Gaddafi was actively engaged in negotiations about his abdication and exile, and the development was squashed by the Obama White House, led by or directed by the State Department. So, let me take a quick break, and we'll use the remainder of the show just to go over some of the other things that the mess that Hitler created. There we go.
Reporting from the eye of the storm. This is the worst weather we've seen in quite some time, folks. And I don't see any end in sight. People have been calling in from across the state complaining their basements are flooding. One guy said he now has an indoor swimming pool in his basement. I told him he needs the waterproofing innovations from Basement Systems. If you want a dry basement or crawl space that will weather any kind of storm, you need the patented solutions from Basement Systems. You've seen them on home makeover shows throughout the country. With a lifetime warranty, every solution is custom designed for your basement. Call now for a free estimate, and you'll never have to worry about storms like these again. I'm predicting this storm front is heading your way, so call Basement Systems and relax.
Call 800-205-8665 for your free in-home inspection, or visit basementradiooffer.com. That's 800-205-8665, or visit basementradiooffer.com.
I've owned my company for 14 years now, and I can tell you that payroll is a 4-letter word. I hate doing it. It eats up hours I don't have, and it costs me money I could be saving. But my accountant's too expensive, and I'm not sure who to call. But I know I need help.
We're Paychex, and we take all the hassles out of small business payroll. We save you time and money. It's easy. Call, fax, or give us your payroll information securely online, and we take care of the rest. We calculate the correct taxes, manage payments and direct deposits. We even send out your checks. Payroll doesn't need to be a 4-letter word anymore. We're so sure that we can save you time and money that we'll give you a month's payroll free. Just for calling 877-750-5371. Get 1 month's payroll for free. Call Paychex right now. 877-750-5371. That's 877-750-5371.
This is Patrick Come Lately Talk Radio, coming to you live via the internet, via rebroadcast on WRSDB, the Red State Talk Radio Network, or from the recordings at archives.patrickcomelately.us. Okay, folks, we're into the final segment of the show. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I know it's a cliche, but time flies when you're having fun. But I do want to finish off and squeeze in this final information about Hildebeest. So, question we should ask is, why did America bomb Libya in the first place? Who ordered it? And the tapes proved that it went all the way to the top. On the day the UN resolution on Libya was passed, Mrs. Clinton ordered a general within the Pentagon to refuse to take any further calls with Gaddafi's son and any other high-level members within the regime. So they could have avoided the war. They didn't want to. We all knew that Hillary Clinton screwed up during and after the Benghazi attack, but now we also know she screwed up before it. It really shows how totally incompetent she actually is. Kucinich even wrote a letter to the White House and to the Secretary of State stating, I've been contacted by an intermediary in Libya who's indicated that Gaddafi is willing to negotiate an end to the conflict under conditions which would seem to favor administration policy. And if he had resigned, abdicated, and gone into exile, it would have been a feather in the cap of King Barry. But no, neither Hildebeest, King Barry, the White House, or the State Department responded to the letter. I mean, this is just absolutely unbelievable. So instead of ensuring a peaceful transition, Hitler insisted on letting rebels run roughshod throughout Libya. And while there were some patriotic ones, a significant portion of the insurgency was Al-Qaeda affiliated terrorists. And in the end, of course, it cost the lives of at least 4 brave Americans. Now, why? I think the war in Libya was manufactured, produced in part by the influence of the Muslim Brotherhood exerted on Hildebeest, because the Muslim Brotherhood has penetrated our office through the influence of Huma Abedin, Clinton's longtime deputy chief of staff, who in name is married to our friend Tony Weiner, but she transferred to the State Department to serve as Hildebeest's aide there. I've heard lots of stories that Hillary and Bill don't actually live together. They have separate houses, and Hillary lives with her partner, yes, a female, and I suspect that is probably Huma Abedin. Remember that Huma Abedin's family's Saudi godfather is Abdullah Omar Nassif, the founder of an Al-Qaeda funding institution that was shut down after 9/11. So how can the Secretary of State be connected with someone who's funding terrorists? But she is. A CIA former operations officer also talks about the fact that amongst the closest advisors to John Brennan, who supposedly is also a Muslim and now head of the CIA, and Dennis McDonough, who's now the White House Chief of Staff, when they're on the National Security Council, the closest advisors, one of the closest advisors was the son of the Sudanese Grand Mufti, right? One of the mullahs, Imam Mohammed Majid. And he's the president of the Muslim Brotherhood affiliated Islamic Society of North America. Muslim Brotherhood again. Folks, now we know why this all happened in Libya. It was the Muslim Brotherhood driving it all. Folks, I don't know, what can we do about it? Well, the first thing we can do about it is make sure that that bitch doesn't get into the White House in 2017. So, folks, tell your friends, make sure that whatever they do, don't allow her in, because this is just, what I've just told you is just the beginning. If she gets 4 or even 8 years in the White House, it'll be a total disaster. Well, folks, we're getting to the end of the show here. It's been fun again. As I said, time flies when you're having fun. So many things we could have talked about, but I wanted to pick up on these. Maybe next week I've got more information about King Barry and the Muslim Brotherhood. Now somebody else from the military making claims about that. So it really is. It's a lot more dangerous than it looks. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in Jordan. Of course, there is the danger there now that with Jordan going on this rampage and killing the ISIS people, that ISIS is going to retaliate to that. Maybe if they start doing that, there will be enough condemnation from all around the globe that we'll finally get our fingers out of our you-know-where and start doing something. But we'll have to wait and see about that. So it could be an interesting show next week. Who knows? Maybe Rex's prediction of July 17th might come earlier than July 17th. Who knows if the world goes to hell in a hell in a handbasket. But we'll have to see. So tune in next week, and we'll have a look at what's happened and maybe look at things that might happen. Could be fun. So I think it's time for the music to start, which means I'm going to say TTFN. Please Join me next week and we'll see what's going on. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the Patriot Come Lately Show. Please take what you have learned and share it with friends and family. Better still, tell them about the show so they can listen too. Remember to support the advertisers on the show. It helps keep this show on the air, and I thank you for that. I'm looking forward to joining you on the next show. Until then, keep spreading our message. Goodbye, and God bless America.